So to get your sample ready for analysis with DART mass spectrometry, you are just going to take a microliter of your sample with a microliter pipette and deposit it onto the closed end of a melting point capillary. Don't use very high concentrations. Only use a concentration as high as 10 micrograms per milliliter. Don't go higher than that. And then you just let your sample dry. It can be very useful to use an empty pipette tray, as you see here, but the sample has to be entirely dry. Don't put the sample into the instrument before it's dry. That being said, it's a very good idea to prepare several more samples than you think you need, because if you screw one up, then it's burned up, it's done, you can't reuse it. So it can be a very good idea to, if you think you only need one sample, I would prepare 3 of them, just in case. So when you're all ready to turn on the instrument, go ahead and turn this black valve mounted on the table, and you'll see here when Gaston does that, the meter over there, did you see it jump up to 2 from 0? So you know then if it's up at 2 that helium is flowing through the instrument. So the first thing you need to do is turn the helium on for the DART source. And you see he's demonstrated if you turn it off, you should see it drop back down. But it always needs to be on when the DART source is running. It's very bad for the DART source to be heated up and running and not have gas in it. So after you turn off the gas, you're ready to turn the instrument. You want to go over to that window, the DART window, which is really just Google Chrome browser, and turn the temperature up to 300 or 350 degrees and let it warm up. If that window is not open, just click on Google Chrome and it should open up. And then you go over to the LTQ Tune window, and you want to open up the Define Scan and Acquire Data windows. The Define Scan is where you're going to set the parameters for the instrument, and the Acquire Data is where you are going to record your spectra. In the Define Scan window, when you're first recording your mass spectrum, you want the parent mass to be empty in that MSN settings. And in the scan range, it should be something like 50 to 500. Here we have 80 to 350, but 50 to 500 is really good. So what that means is it's going to look at all the masses between 50 and 500, and that should encompass almost all the drugs that you're going to see. In the Acquire Data window, you want the folder to be your folder. Give it a good file name, and in the sample name and comment, you can write whatever you want. In the file name, don't put crazy characters. For the acquire time, you can do continuously if you want, but it's better to click on the button that says minutes and set it at 1. And when you're ready to start running, the acquire window is where you're going to hit start. So Michelle here is all ready to run her sample. She's set it up in the software. And now she's hit start, and you can rotate that screen if you want so that you can see the time. There's a random dude in the background. But she's going to wait 30 seconds or 0.5 minutes, and at 0.5 minutes she's going to put her sample into the instrument, and you see she's put it about halfway between the mass spectrometer and the DART source. She waited until 0.75 minutes and then pulled her sample out, and then she's going to let it go for another up until it reaches 1 minute. And here's Lisa with a little bit better view of where you want that sample positioned. So when you're ready to put it in, after you've got about a half minute of background and everything, you put it just halfway between there, and you should get great signal if you have it in that position. So when you have your MS data, if you want to get more specific information, you already know the main peak for what you have, the MS peak. You want to go in and do the same thing, run the sample just like you did, but you're going to change the parameters in the Define Scan window. So we'll stick with the example of cocaine. So we've already run our sample once, and we've seen, oh, it had that parent peak at 304. So what we're going to do is we're going to say capture that ion at 304. So under parent mass, we're going to run it at 304. We're going to leave everything else alone except for collision energy, where we're going to say 30. So fragment it with an energy of 30. And 30 is just a good energy to use if you're acquiring these MS-MS spectra. So for purposes of this lab, just put 30 in that window. So now we're going to run the sample again, but and it's the same sample, it's cocaine, but now we're asking it if it sees a 304 to fragment it. So we're going to put the sample in here, and instead of seeing that parent mass at 304, we should see the fragment ion at 182. So again, we punch start and wait 0.5 minutes. And at 0.5 minutes, put the sample into the instrument and leave it in the instrument between 0.5 minutes and 0.75 minutes. Remove it at 0.75 minutes and get more background up to 1 minute. And the reason we're doing all this 0.5 minutes to 0.5 minutes and then 1 minute is you want to have an area of background or an area where you have very little signal, so that you see in the signal versus time, you see a big spike, and there it is. She just put the sample in the instrument, and now we see that big old peak at 182, and she's going to leave it in until 0.75 minutes and then pull it out, and then from 0.7, so she's pulled it out now, and that peak is fading. And if we look at the signal versus time, when we actually look at the data, you'll see that peak fade significantly between 0.75 and 1 minute. So I'll show you in another video how to actually look at this data.